This is a brief disclaimer before I get into the actual video of me talking about my previous miscarriages. If at any point during this video you feel uncomfortable, please just look after yourself and click off the video. This is the story of my third miscarriage. Before I get into this video, I just want to give a backstory on the actual third miscarriage. So this one was actually 9 months after my second miscarriage. It was shocking that it took me that long to get pregnant again. It was over 9 months. I did go to the doctors to try and get the referral going for the fertility clinic, because I just thought it was so strange that it had been, the other two were so close together and in the same year. I was like, this is just so strange. I was like, you need to get this checked out. So we started the referral process going for the fertility clinic after my second miscarriage, as the third one had took over 9 months for me to conceive again. So I went to the doctors and they basically wanted me to get an ultrasound outside of the hospital done. So I went to Affidea in Letterkenny and I got the TV transvaginal scan and as well the abdominal scan done as well. And they wanted me to get my bloods done. So they wanted 2 particular bloods to be done. I'm not sure on the name of them, but one had to be done on day 2 or 3 of my period. And then another one had to be done like a few days after I've ovulated, just to check to see if I've ovulated. So in getting this process going, on my previous cycle I had ovulated early, so they asked me to come back and get my bloods done again to see if I ovulated. So I was like, oh, that's no worries, I'll come back on my next cycle. So in doing that, I came back on my next cycle and they done my bloods and I was like, oh, this is amazing. And 2 days after they did that, I was making another appointment because I had gotten another positive pregnancy test. So with this pregnancy, that I made it to 6 weeks and 2 days. So this one was on the 27th of May, where I found out that I was pregnant, 2023. So 9 months after my second miscarriage. So if any of you are in the same situation, I would definitely get in touch with your doctor, and maybe they can try and do the same process and it will fasten things up for you as well. So this miscarriage was a very long one and probably my most difficult one that I had gone through. So I just want to let you know that I will be talking about a lot of stuff that went wrong in this pregnancy. So I decided to do the pregnancy test and I got the positive. It was so strange. Myself and my husband were lying in bed and I was like, I'm pregnant, I know I'm pregnant. And it was like 4 o'clock in the morning, so I was like, okay, I'm gonna do it on my first pee of the morning. And I did it and I brought the pregnancy test back over to my bedside table and I was just watching it and waiting and hoping and praying that I was going to have another pregnancy. So I was sat there with my flashlight on my phone because it was pitch black, just watching the pregnancy test and watching it go to positive. And then I shoved it in my husband's face and I was like, look, it's a positive. I was like, oh my god, this is amazing. But then myself and himself included were but like, okay, it's a positive. What kind of roller coaster is this going to be for us? It's just very hard to get excited in those moments. We were saying to ourselves, okay, like, let's not get too excited about it. Yes, I know that you're pregnant and that's wonderful, but until we actually see something there, then we can get excited, basically. And that's the mentality that we had, like, going into this pregnancy. I was trying not to get stressed about it. So I made the appointment with the doctor and it was the same nurse that I had that drew my bloods the previous week, basically, for the testing for the fertility clinic. And her name just happened to be Siobhan as well. And I was like, this is just crazy. And So she drew my bloods for me and she was so, so excited. She's like, I can't believe this. She's like, I'm really, really praying that you both have a successful pregnancy. She's like, I'll be following along on your journey with you. And both of us were so excited. I was really happy and excited leaving that appointment. Just having somebody with positive energy and hoping the best for us was honestly wonderful. So I had gone to the doctors and I was just waiting for the results to come back for the blood work. And they came back and they were positive, and then it was basically just waiting for the appointment for the referral for the clinic. I got this one a lot quicker. I think I got it like within 2 weeks, so I only had to wait 2 weeks for the first scan and stuff like that. So I thought that was absolutely amazing. So the pregnancy in itself had been going good. I was having food aversions, nausea, and I was like, yes, just keep all of the symptoms, keep them coming, because that was my mentality. I was like, the more symptoms I have, the positive it's going to be and the positive outcome it's going to be. I was like, this is going to be fantastic. And we had a family event, like a family party down in Navan, and myself and my husband were working the Friday and we were going to travel down the Friday night, and the party was on the Saturday. And the Friday, like Thursday, Friday evening, morning, I was starting to get like really, really sharp pains, like to the point where I was like, it keeled over with the pains. I was like, this is just not normal. But there wasn't any blood or anything like that. And I was Googling things and they're like, oh, cramps are normal in pregnancy, it's just your body's way of growing the baby and all that kind of stuff. So I never thought anything of it, because my initial thing was, if you see blood, go to the hospital, which is obviously not the case. So we travelled down to Navan, and we got to Navan that Friday night and I had some food and then I went straight to bed because I was absolutely so tired, because it's like a 4-hour drive. And then we woke up the next day and I was like, oh, this is amazing, it's a lovely day. So I was out playing in the garden with the dogs. I didn't have any sharp pains or cramps. They kind of were coming and going. And then that evening everyone was getting ready to go out to the party, and I was sat there and I was like, I just don't think I should go, because I had gone to the toilet and when I wiped there was a small bit of blood, and I was like, I don't want to put pressure on me by dancing and going out and standing all the time. So I was like, I'm gonna stay at home, you go to the party. I was like, I'll be grand here minding the 2 dogs, they'll look after me, kind of thing. So everyone went on their merry way to the party. They came back at around like 12 o'clock, and that was it really. So myself and my husband, we travelled back up to Donegal that Sunday, and I had the appointment on the Monday for the fertility clinic. So I was like, okay, at least I can ask her all the questions that have been bothering me for the past 2 days. I was like, I can ask her on the Monday. So I was like, okay, it'll be grand, I'll hold off until then. So we got up for our appointment and drove to Letterkenny and got into the appointment, and she was just asking me a few questions as well on like my history and just confirming all of those kind of stuff. So she's like, okay, go on into the toilet there and just get the robe and put it around you, and we'll come up, we'll pop you up in the bed and we'll do a transvaginal scan. I was like, perfect, no worries. And before all this I had no bleeding or anything like that, just like the small cramps. And I told her about that and she kind of pulled a funny face. I was like, that I had been getting like small, like sharp cramps. And she's like, oh, okay, we'll see anyway. We'll do the scan and see how everything goes. I was like, okay, no worries. And then I'd gone to the toilet because I had to empty my bladder. So I was going to the toilet while putting the robe on me, and I wiped and the bleeding had gotten really, really, really heavy. And I was like, I was honestly shocked. So my heart in that moment, it was just me in this small little cubicle and the gynae and my husband in the next room, and I just didn't know what to do. I was like, it's happening all over again. I don't know what to do. So I just went out and I told her. I had like the tissue between my legs and I was like, I haven't been bleeding. I was like, but I literally just wiped in the toilet after going to the toilet. I was like, and there's blood everywhere, like there's blood all over my hand. I was like, fucking hell, excuse my language. So she popped me up on the table and she's like, we'll do the transvaginal scan, and she couldn't see anything. There was nothing on the scan, nothing showing up. So then she done the abdominal scan and nothing was coming up on that either. Like not even a sac. So bear in mind I was 6 weeks and 2 days. At this point there should have even just been like a small sac, but there wasn't anything. So going by the sharp pains that I was having, and as well now the bleeding, they decided to admit me to the hospital. So I still hadn't gotten the results back from the HCG. So basically they wanted me to stay in the hospital overnight, or maybe for a few days. They weren't too sure as to what was happening. So they checked me in and I got a room of my own, which was honestly wonderful. They tend to in Letterkenny Hospital that if anyone's going through like miscarriages or loss or even pregnancy kind of question mark, they give you your own room, which is wonderful, instead of putting you into the actual the main rooms with other people that are going in for like cyst operations and stuff like that. So it was nice that I got my own room so I could just be with my own thoughts as well, and if they come in and ask questions and that, I wasn't like trying to be quiet and sus and stuff like that. So that was nice that I had my own room. So I get admitted to my room and the doctor comes down and basically goes over as to why they want to keep me. They just want to make sure that it's not an ectopic pregnancy, as obviously they couldn't see it. So they basically make me stay overnight in the hospital. They fast me for 24 hours in case I have to go in for surgery or anything like that. They obviously want to make sure that I'm okay and prepared. And in doing that, they organised a scan for the next day. So they basically said, okay, we'll scan you tomorrow just to see how everything's going, to see if anything, they can see anything on the scan. So that night the bleeding kind of got a bit worse. Then the next morning they basically bring me in for the scan, and they then again still couldn't see anything. They were seeing loads of other things, and one of the doctors did suggest that I had fibroids. At this point we didn't know that it was outside of my uterus, which we later found out. So they were kind of still a bit concerned because at the moment it was still a pregnancy of an unknown location. So they organised a scan with me for the radiology department. So, a departmental scan, which is obviously they've got bigger equipment in that. So later that morning, I was sent down to that department, and then they carried out a transvaginal scan and as well an abdominal scan. So they did the abdominal scan first because I was filling up with loads of liquids for over an hour and I didn't go to the toilet. So they basically did that first, and there was a lot of questions surrounding that, and I was kind of like, what is going on? So they could still see like the blood in my uterus, but still no baby could be found. They did find that I didn't have a kidney on my right side, but the one on my left side was big. So they started asking me questions about my kidney, and they're like, are you aware that you just have one kidney? And I was like, nope. I was like, I thought I had 2 kidneys. I was like, this is all news to me. I was like, this is just crazy. So they basically brought me in and were like, okay, go to the toilet, empty your bladder. So I went to the toilet and tried to empty my bladder as much as possible. And then they did the transvaginal scan. So they put the transvaginal scan of me, and lo and behold, they couldn't find a baby. So at this point I had still been bleeding as well. It had gotten quite heavy. So they were still very, very concerned as to what was happening to me. And basically they sent me back up to my room, and I still at this point wasn't able to eat, so I hadn't eaten in more than 24 hours because I had my breakfast that morning for the scan, then they sent me up, then it was the next day. So it was longer than 24 hours before I'd eaten. So they were giving me anti-nausea medication as well, because I was feeling really, really sick because I hadn't eaten in God knows how long. So I went back up to my room, and the evening came around, then it was nighttime, and I took a turn for the worse. Basically that night, the abdominal cramps got really, really bad. So I had stood up to try and walk around the room to try and get the cramps to be gone, but it just wasn't working. So I was like cooped over my bed like that, and I was like, I need the nurse. So I just rang the bell and called the nurse, and she came in, and I was like, I'm in so much pain. I was like, it's literally like gone from like a 4 to a 10 in the space of like 5 minutes. So I was cooped over my bed to try and get the cramps gone, and they just weren't going. So the nurse basically was trying to get me into the bed, but I couldn't lift my legs up because I was in that much pain. So then my whole body just started shaking and shivering. So she checked my temperature. My temperature was skyrocketing. So she called for another nurse to try and help her because she couldn't get me into bed. So she didn't want to leave me there to try and get the doctors to come to try and help me. So she eventually lowered the bed and eased me into it very, very slightly. And within 5 minutes, she came back and she was giving me loads of pain relief, just to try and help the pain. Then they wheeled me out into another room. They're like, okay, we've got the gynae here. He's going to do another scan just to see what's going on. And at that point, he had done the scan. I was still shivering. My body temperature was still very, very high. I was in a lot of pain. I just remember thinking, please just don't let me die. Please don't let me die. Please don't let me die. Like, what's my husband going to do? Like, I can't do this. I can't leave this earth. I was like, I really, really can't. So I just remember being in the bed, and the doctor was scanning me with the transvaginal ultrasound. I had the other nurse beside me, and she was calming me down and just being there and consoling me going through this whole process. And she was like, is this sore? Please let us know if this is sore. And then slowly and surely my body temperature started to go back down to normal. The shivering wasn't as bad, and the doctor was still carrying out the transvaginal scan. I felt like he was there for hours, just scanning me just to try and find out what was actually going on. And then that's when he found the fibroids as well. Then I had a cyst, and then they drew my bloods as well, and my HCG had dropped by like 7 or something like that. And then they were happy with how I was feeling, and brought me back to my bed. And the nurses checked on my vitals every 30 minutes. They were just making sure that I was okay. So this incident happened around 10:45, and I wasn't back in my bed until like 11:45 or something like that. I just remember looking at the time going, oh my god, please let me get back to my room in one piece. So I got back to my room, and I think it could have been like an hour later, and I just remember being so tired. So I was like trying to get back to sleep, and just the cramps weren't there anymore. They weren't like, they were there maybe like a 2 out of a 10 or something like that. They had really, really dropped drastically. And I was trying to get some sleep in the room, and it was very hard with the nurses coming in every 30 minutes to check it, to see if everything was okay. But I was okay with that, because I was like, at least every 30 minutes I know somebody's going to be coming in to check on me to see if I'm okay. So I tried getting back to sleep, and I must have been asleep for about like probably like 10 minutes or something like that. Well, it felt like 10 minutes. It could have been 20, I'm not too sure. And I just feel gushing coming out of me. I was like, what is going on? So I hopped up out of the bed, and I run to the toilet, and I get one of those cardboard things that they put over the toilets to try and catch anything if it's coming out. And I just remember standing over the toilet with the cardboard thing, and just blood was gushing out of me. It's like somebody just went like this and just turned the tap on. It was very, very scary, but thankfully they had the buttons in the toilet where you can call the nurse. And I just remember the nurse coming in and just standing in the door going, what's wrong? I was like, I'm just bleeding everywhere. And she's like, okay. She's like, sit down in the toilet and calm down. She was so lovely, so she was. And literally I could have been bleeding for about 2 minutes, and then it just stopped. I was like, this is so strange. I just couldn't get over it. So they did that, and they checked my vitals, checked my temperature as well, and put me back to bed and gave me like a change of underwear and stuff like that. So I finally got back to sleep at around 4 o'clock, and then I was awoken at 6 again for them to give me medication and pain relief and all that kind of stuff. So the next day, nothing really happened. So in total, I was in the hospital for 6 days. So then on my second last day in the hospital, they're like, okay, let's do another scan. So they did another scan on me, and lo and behold, the little baby decided to appear in the uterus. So there was no longer the fear of me having an ectopic pregnancy. So they kept me in the hospital for another day just to make sure that everything was okay. So they were going to do a DNC. So that morning that I had the first scan and they saw the baby appear in the uterus, they're like, okay, well, it is obviously a miscarriage. There's no heartbeat. There's no nothing. We could just literally see like the sac. I was like, okay. So they're like, would you be okay getting a DNC? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. Because my previous miscarriages, they just were so drawn out. I was like, okay, if they can just go in, take everything out, and then I'll just have a little bit of a recovery with some bleeding and stuff like that. I was like, I don't mind that. But like the fact that the previous ones were so drawn out and passing blood every day, passing tissues and stuff like that. So I was like, I just need to take the DNC just for my own sanity. So I was like, yes, please, let's do a DNC. So the next morning they scheduled the DNC with me. So they brought me in for a scan first, and then the gynae basically measured it and they're like, it's actually too small to do a DNC. So we have to send you home and you basically have to pass it by yourself. So I was very frustrated about that. But obviously they can't go and do a DNC when it's so minuscule. So they sent me home, and I basically had to come in every single week for a scan, and they checked my HC bloods and stuff like that as well to see if they were going down. So I was slowly and surely passing blood and clots and tissue and stuff like that for the 2 weeks. And then I finally went back in and they done another scan and everything had cleared out. Then they done HCG blood tests, and my blood had gone to, I think, minus 10 or something like that. So then they were able to sign me off again. So before I was released from the hospital, a big team came in and just told me what the process is going to be. And because this is my third miscarriage, they're going to start doing a lot of investigations into as to why that these are happening. So they told me obviously to come back in 6 weeks or something like that, and they were going to schedule me in for an appointment. And I had to get my bloods drawn and all that kind of stuff for the fertility treatment and that. So yeah, I'll get into that one in my next story if that's okay. Thank you so much, and take care and mind yourselves.